Hello, board game geeks. Long time no see. This is Brian Hazard, and I'm coming to you today with a video and a part of a series that doesn't technically exist yet called Then and Now. It's going to be a series of games that I do, series of videos that I do in which I compare games from the past that have been re-implemented or re-released in the future and get a chance to compare changes that have been made to the games, their mechanics, their themes, and that sort of thing. Now, I have done one video previously where I compared Gear World, the Borderlands by Fantasy Flight Games, to the original version of the game called Borderlands that was released in the early 80s, and it was by the same trio of game designers whose names I'm totally forgetting right now, who did Cosmic Encounters and Dune. Those two games are phenomenal, of course, as you know. Borderlands was not phenomenal, nor was Gear World. However, it was cool to see how they had re-themed the game and sort of brought it up to modern-day standards to some extent. So I thought it'd be cool to show you some other games. I actually have a handful of games available to me where I can show you a similar occurrence. So what I want to focus on today for our Then and Now is going to be this guy right here, Northwind. As you can see by the name of the designer at the top, Klaus Teuber, he is, of course, well known for being the inventor of Catan and so many other things that are Catan. Now, you can see here I have a few games sitting on the table, and I'm going to talk today about how these games are all connected. Now, Settlers of Catan would be the origin point for this. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy right now. I had a very old version I wanted to get rid of so I could, get a new one and use the new expansions and stuff, and I just haven't gotten around to it. So know that in this discussion, the first thing we're talking about is Catan. Here, we'll pretend this is Catan. There, look, see, you can't see the part that says card. So this is Catan. Sure it is. So, originally Settlers of Catan, everybody knows about that. I won't get much into that. But after Settlers of Catan, they made we had Catan in Space, which is Starfarers of Catan. Not everybody loves this game. I do. I love Starfarers of Catan. My wife does as well. We have the 5 to 6 player expansion. This is the first gamer's game I ever owned. This is the first game. I saw it at a mall. I looked at it for ages and finally decided to jump because it had amazing bits and pieces in it and such cool things that I had never seen before, especially the motherships, which I will pull out and show in a little bit, where you get to add upgrades to the mothership, which then affect all the other ships that you have. So after they did Starship Catan, or Starfarers of Catan, they did a 2-player version of that game called Starship Catan. Now, Starship Catan is a very different game. And this game is a 2-player game that uses the theme of Starfarers of Catan, but is in fact a card game where each person has their own little ship that they can upgrade, but it's a mat that you put in front of yourself. This is a pretty cool game. It's a 2-player game. And I don't know how many people actually got a chance to play it. I liked it a lot, but Jenny, my wife, sort of lost interest in it as the years went on. I don't think she thought it was a bad game. It's just when you have so many good games to pick, sometimes some fall off the mat. Now, here's how I understand the way things go. And if anybody knows I'm wrong, correct me in the comments below. But my understanding was Settlers of Catan came out. Then Starfarers of Catan happened. And then not long after that, you can sort of see by the numbers maybe a little bit there, in their series. Here's 3000, here's 3010. I don't really know what those numbers mean. After this, they were inspired to do a similar game to Starship Catan, but in the Settlers of Catan world, which is when Catan the card game was made. Now, I might be wrong, but I do believe this is the order of operations. This inspired that. So Catan the card game is very similar, and I'll touch on some of the mechanics to it, of how this game sort of became this game. And again, it's a 2-player game. It uses similar mechanics, not the same, but similar mechanics, to create a village in front of you and sort of build up your own little principality, they call it. And to note, years later, this went out of print. I've had this for many years, and after a few years, this went out of print. And this came back up on the scene a couple years ago, which is Rivals for Catan. Rivals for Catan re-implements Catan the card game, and Rivals for Catan just sort of simplified a few things. One of the challenges with Settlers games, and I'm sure I'm not the only one to notice this, is their use of the word expansion, which drives me nuts, especially in this game, where there are decks of cards that are expansion cards that you use right? It's not an extension, it's an expansion. Or they'll say, like, this is a 5 to 6 player extension. where everyone else in the world calls it an expansion. But this game actually has cards called expansion cards. There are decks called expansion decks. And there was an add-on to the game that included a number of new decks and themes that allowed you to add in, and those were called, I think those were extensions too. It was so complicated to know, because I bought this game used, and it was already all in one box, so trying to figure out the difference between an expansion and an extension, and what's part of the base game and what isn't, and which ones go where, it wasn't actually that easy. It was kind of a weird setup. This has simplified that quite a bit, and I have to say that when comparing these two, Rivals for Catan is the better game for a couple of reasons. One, it simplified a lot of what the first game did, and two, its expansions are, there's a couple of small box expansions to this, which, why are those not out here? Please hold. There's a couple of small box expansions that go along with Rivals of Catan, Age of Darkness and Age of Enlightenment, and they both add significant and interesting things that change the game and really add a lot of theme and variety to the game. Of particular interest for me, and I do believe it's in this one, Merchant Princes, maybe not, maybe it's this one. One of these has pirate ships. Yes, this has pirate ships. This one is really cool because to the side of your principality you set up 9 different cards. You know, this deserves in its entirely own video, so I'm going to stop talking too much about the difference between Rivals for Catan and Catan, because that's definitely worthy of a then and now video of its own. What I really want to talk about, amongst all of these, because over here we've got Northwind, which I've only just touched on, what I really want to talk about is this guy right here, and this guy right here. Northwinds is an official re-implementation of Starship Catan. And so what I'm going to touch on today is sort of the differences between the two, where they went, what direction they went in. And I can tell you going into it, if you have any interest in Northwind, totally worth picking it up. If you like Catan, if you like that sort of general, the mechanics that are involved there, and if you liked this, you will like this. I'm also going to point out that not only does this re-implement Starship Catan, but it's also very much sort of flavored by the grandfather over here, Starfarers of Catan, in some of the way that it implements the mechanics. So, yeah, that's what we're going to touch on today. We're going to go into Starship Catan, and then we'll go into Northwind, and I'll show you how those two games play and the differences and similarities. Okay, so to start off the comparison between Starship Catan and Northwind, I think I want to show you give you a quick rundown on Starship Catan, what the game looked like, set up, and its, the origins of that. So in Starship Catan, it's a 2-player game only, and each player has their own spaceship with modules and that sort of thing. Now, this is taken directly from the original game Starfarers of Catan. And if you've ever played Starfarers of Catan, one of the coolest things about Starfarers of Catan is the mothership. Now, these motherships, every player had their own mothership, and each mothership was used to represent the abilities of every spaceship on the board. So this was just, it was a representation of the ships themselves. It's this fantastic tactile piece of game equipment. I love it. I've always loved it. I'll never stop loving it. It's the reason I bought the game. And so with this ship, it could tell you how sturdy your ship was by whether or not you had freight rings attached to the ship that you could put on there. It would tell you how fast your ships could go by how many boosters you had snapped on. You could put up to 6 boosters. I think up to 5 freight rings? 1, 2, 3, yeah, 5 freight rings. You could put guns, cannons on the front of it, up to 6 cannons. That would show how powerful you were if you wanted to fight pirates. How famous you were. You would put fame rings on the top of the ship here to show how famous you were for all the good deeds you've done, and you get victory points for every 2 fame rings. So this was a big thing in Starfarers of Catan. Oh, and your movement was not determined by dice, but on these little balls at the bottom of the ship. And we would say, all right, man, it's your turn. Drop your balls. It's horrible, I know. And if you got a black ball, which you always did, you would have an event card instead of just moving. And so you had this fantastic piece, and it was one of the most popular things, I think, arguably, about Starfarers of Catan. So they took a lot of this to inform what they did here with the board game for Starship Catan. In Starship Catan, you've got boosters just like in Starfarers. You've got cannons just like in Starfarers. There's resources, but they're not handled the same. And so there's also trade ships and colony ships, much like in Starfarers of Catan. But that's where the theme similarities sort of end. So in this game, the way that the game was played is you play till 10 victory points, and you got victory points in a number of different ways. So the way this game works is that on your turn, okay, you've got your ship here, and you've got some modules, and you'll see that there's also some cargo areas here. And these cargo areas show different numbers of resources. Like here's fuel, 1, 2, 3, 4. At the beginning of the game, nobody can have more than 2 of the regular resources. And when you get a resource, you flip this tile over and you show, I now have 1 of that resource. If you get another one, you go to 2. Now, at the beginning of the game, you can't have more than 2 resources in any spot unless you have a technology that lets you do so. And each one of these squares is a technology that gives you an ability during the game. You get 1 for free at the beginning, and it recommends that you take this one that lets you have 3 resources in each cargo bay if you're new. That's the one I've taken. And so each one of these are different resources you can have, and the resources are the same as the resources in Starfarers. So you've got your trade goods, your grain, your crystal, or your carbon, your fuel, your ore, and this is different. This is science points, and actually you start the game with 1 science point and 2 trade goods, and with the science points you actually are unlimited to how many you can get. What are the science points for, Brian? Glad you asked. Science points are the way to really start upgrading your engines and your cannons. You can see you can get another level 1 cannon for 2 carbon, but if you want to get a nice level 2 cannon like that, then you need to be able to pay 2 carbon and a science point. So that's the primary purpose for those. So in the production phase of the game, much like other Catan games, you've got a die that gets rolled for production, and you've got different planets that provide different resources. So anytime any player rolls a 1, I get a carbon, and this is also worth 1 victory point. Same with the person on the other side of the table. They've got, if anybody rolls a 1, they get a fuel. So at the beginning of the game, all we want is 1s to be rolled. Now the die only has 1, 2, 3 twice. So at the beginning of the round, you roll a die, and any planets that produce resources on a 3 would get a resource. Okay. Then the next part of the game is called the flight phase, and this is not the same as other Catan games, obviously. In the flight phase, you use the number of boosters on your ship and combine it with whatever number you rolled on the production die, and you get to fly into a sector. There's 4 sectors. They all have different, it's randomized at the beginning of the game. There's different planets and different opportunities for trading and pirates and that sort of thing in each sector. If you have a speed of 2 with your engines, and then, well, this was a 3, I bumped it, so you have a speed of 5, that means that you can go 5 cards deep into any sector. Now every time you go into a sector, it's shuffled afterwards, so although you'll learn what things are in a sector, you won't necessarily know where in that sector. So if it was, the Blue Moon's player's turn and they were going 5, let's say they pick this sector, they flip over a card, they see what it is. This is a trade planet, so if they wanted, they could buy or sell trade goods for 4 coin each. They call it Astro, so for 4 Astro. So if you took advantage of that, you could pay the 4 Astro from the kitty. Let's just say for kicks that I do decide to do that. I pay 4 Astro, and then my trade goods can go up 1 spot. I can't go higher than that unless I get a better logistics module. Okay, and then I've taken 1 action. You only get 2 actions every turn. So I've taken 1 action, I go on to the next card. Okay, now this is a trade planet. I could do the same thing with carbon. If I didn't want to, I would draw another card. Now I'm at a pirate. Have to fight the pirate. The pirate's strength is 3 plus a roll of the combat die. Your opponent rolls the combat die. That's a 5. Then I have 1 cannon. I roll. I only got a 3. That means the pirates beat me. My turn ends immediately. I don't get to go any further. If you want, you can just pay him 3 Astro and make a break for it. Then you don't have to deal with the pirate, and you could keep going. Whether I fight him or not, this doesn't count as an action, so I can keep going. Since I get to go a total of 5, I can go 1 more. Here's a colony planet here. And if I wanted to go to that planet and... so if I wanted to keep this planet, I could say I want to colonize this. I would spend a colony ship, get rid of it, take this, and put it down here in my, I guess, tableau. Bleh, French word. And so now I get carbon on a 1 or ore on a 2, and it's worth a victory point. Now, I won't be able to colonize again until I get another colony ship, which I can buy during the build phase. It's at the last part of every turn. But in doing so, I have now taken 2 actions, and then since I took that card, we replace it with a replacement card from over here. And at the end of my turn, we take all of these, we shuffle them, and we put them back into the sector deck. So after you've flown, you can use whatever resources you have to build and upgrade your ship. You can add cannons, you can buy a sensor module in order to make your ship give you more abilities, and each module gives you a better ability. Now this game is has a few places where you can really kind of mess with the other player. One of the most important being that the level 1 modules everybody has, but the level 2 modules, there's only one of each, and they are sitting over here. So if I, for example, wanted a better logistics module, I would, I could get one. Here's the enhanced logistics module, but I would have to be the first player to be able to pay for it. I take it from the middle, it replaces my old logistics module, and now the other player can never have this module. So you have to decide which ones are important to you, or decide which ones are more important to your other player that you want to take so that they can't have them, and that has a little bit of a take that aspect of it to the game to sort of mess with the other person. So it is a matter of deciding what's more important to you, upgrading your ship, getting as many planets as possible. Really the main way to get victory points is by taking planets. You can also take trade planets. If you came across one, which we didn't see in here yet, trade planet. Trade planets have a letter T on them, and if you get one, like this, that's a trade planet. So you can trade 3 for 1 for food, gives you a friendship point. You could spend one of your trade ships to get this. And then this would come onto your tableau, and you would spend your trade ship. Now, I won't be able to take any more trade or colony planets until I buy a new trade ship or a new colony ship during the build phase. So that limits you from just grabbing stuff. There's always extra stuff going into the piles. And then one thing that's important to notice is that throughout the game there are adventures that can be taken, and these adventures are things like fly to the planet Palace, and if you reach it, you claim a resource of your choice. And so in doing so, you get the resource, this goes away, and a new one appears. Alright, now this one actually gives you fame if you complete it. Bring wheat, give it to the starving people, you get a fame point and a resource of your choice. Fame points are important because once you have the most fame points, you get this victory point right here if you have at least 3 and you have more than everybody else. Okay? If another player ties with you, you no longer have the most fame points, so you would have to lose that. So that's the gist of the game, is trying to get planets and finish adventures to get enough fame points and victory points, friendship, victory, and fame points to beat the game. And you've got this big ship in front of you that you upgrade and change around in order to represent how many resources you're holding. When you spend a resource, you just dial this down like that. Okay, and yeah, so that's the gist of the game. It's a 2-player game. You're constantly flying into there. The sectors change over time because as you take cards out, you add other cards in. And the first player to 10 points wins. So what I'm going to do now is touch on how this game has been translated into what Northwind is. The theme is quite different. This is in outer space. That is privateers and pirates and that sort of thing in the high seas. So we'll take a look at that next, and you guys can sort of see how they're similar. Alright, so having gone over Starship Catan, now let me show you Northwind and the similarities between the two. And if you know me at all and how I feel about big, sexy, tactile game pieces and cool things, you're going to know right away why Northwind in a lot of ways fires Starship Catan for me. Well, one, because you can buy it on Amazon for like $27, $28 right now, whereas, at least with Prime, and Starship Catan's been out of print for years and years. But you've got this right here. So this is magical. I love these. These are, each player gets their own pirate ship. Now, or it's not a pirate ship, sorry, it's a privateer's ship, or what do they call it? Well, according to the rules, they call it a large ship. So that's what you get. And I would argue that this is a large ship. Now, one of the reasons that I like Starfarers of Catan and Starship Catan and now Northwind is because of the big, chunky pieces. Settlers of Catan is a good game, and some of the expansions are really excellent. But I love boutique type over-the-top bits, and this is boutique and over-the-top. I love it. What I also love is that even though Northwind is a re-implementation of Starship Catan, and it does follow in the tradition of having a ship that is your own that you upgrade, what I like about this is that this harkens back more to the mothership of Starship Catan, where this is cool. You have your own ship, but everything are chits, right? You're just adding chits and cardboard bits. And I understand this is one of the smaller games, but this is great. And just like in the Starfarers of Catan, where you had your mothership and you were literally adding things onto it to make it more powerful, you're doing the same thing here. So just like in this game where you add cannons on to make you a better adversary for the pirates, in this game you also add cannons onto your ship. You literally add little cardboard cannons onto your ship to make your ship more powerful. And you can have up to, let's just do it, because there's no excuse not to have bristling cannons, right? It's hard to do through the camera. Okay, there, kind of, I think we got it. There you go. There's another cannon, here's another cannon, right? So this determines how powerful you are by putting, I cannot do this with one hand, there we go, putting pirate ships on there. But there's more. Just like in this game where you're upgrading modules to give you different abilities, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Boosters. In these two games, you use boosters to go faster. In this game, where you're on a ship, obviously you would use your sails to go faster. So when you upgrade your sails, you literally just bring it up a notch on your mast to indicate that you are now able to go faster. So if you recall, when I mentioned in this game, there are 4 stacks of cards, and your speed determines how many cards you can draw to go into that sector. This game has a similar mechanic thing, where the sail, the space, the location of the sail determines how fast you can go, which means how many tiles you can draw. Now, in this game, you use these dials to show what your resources were, right? You flip this over, and then you use this to indicate how many resources you have. In this game, you actually have a cargo hold, a physical cargo hold that can hold up to 6 total cargo. And you use these wooden guys to indicate the cargo that you have. So if you have salt, you take this salt and you put it in your hold, like that. Now you have salt. If you have fish, then you take this. They all have this little thing on the bottom so you can fit it in. Now, my wife has mentioned this, and I agree. One downside of this game. That's a fish. You getting that there? I'm going to try to focus on it. That is a fish. You picking that up? See, there's the if I hold it like this, tail fin, dorsal fin, little goldfish mouth. That is a fish. That is an awful fish. Now you can have 2, you can't have more than 2 of any resource, which is similar to how this game begins, and you can't have more than 6 total. Now that's not a restriction that you have over here. But the fact that your resources are actually wooden bits that you put in your hold, I love that. That's great. The other bit is that in this game, you bought modules to upgrade your ship. And in this game, you actually hire crew to increase your ship. And every time you hire a pirate, which are these light blue guys that look like this when they're on the ship, but without it, it looks like they have some sort of absolutely horrible medical condition. And you put them in various locations on the boat. So if I put them here, I can trade with a merchant twice instead of once. If I put them here, I'm more powerful against the pirates, because usually only this counts against a pirate. This doesn't. Neither does this. But if you get that particular guy on your boat, now these doubles count as 2 hits against the pirate. So he's the cannoneer. This means you get more money from... at the end of the beginning of your turn, if you don't have any money, you only take 1 coin. You get a free coin. But if you have this guy on your boat, you get 2 coins. I never got this when I played, because I felt like if I'm playing good, I'm not starting the round with no money. And then this means every time you trade 1 or 2 goods, you get 1 additional coin total, not 1 for each good. And then lastly, you've got the lookout. And the lookout up here will let you scan when you start going into a stack to see where you're going to go, he lets you see 1 card and then decide to get rid of it, maybe put it at the bottom of the deck so you don't have to use it. There are 5 slots, but only 4 dudes. So you have to decide which way you're going to go. Now, I did like in this game that you could get an even better module and that there was competition to get it. That doesn't exist here, but I don't feel like that's a big deal. Let me say that the biggest bonus, the hugest difference between these two games is that Northwind plays 4 people, Starship plays 2. So that in itself is going to make this game hit the table way, way more. Also, the High Seas pirate theme has been really popular for a while now, and the way that they've implemented it really makes it gorgeous. And for a number of reasons, this game is more approachable and easier to teach than this game. This game is a little more sophisticated, and it has more moving parts, and for some people that's awesome. And it's also got the niche value of being out of print and something cool that a lot of people don't even know exists, and certainly don't know the connection between this and like Catan, the card game. And probably won't know the connection between this and Starship of Catan. Anyways, let me say gameplay-wise how they're similar. The interesting way that they've implemented the same game systems from this into this game. Arrgh, game mechanics. So, in this game, just like in Starship Catan, where you had 4 decks of cards in the middle of the table that you could fly into like sectors, this game has 3 sets of tiles. Now, in Starship Catan, you had these adventure cards off to the side that gave you objectives to work towards in order to get points. This game sort of eschews the normal get victory points aspect of the Catan games, and instead has you focusing on trying to get as many of your wood cubes onto this scoreboard. The first player in a 4-player game to get 8 wooden cubes on this board wins. If you're playing with less than 4 players, then it's 10 wooden cubes. And the first way you can get a wooden cube on the board is just by hiring all of your dudes onto your ship. You'll have opportunities at different places when you go through these to pay a coin and put a dude on your ship. If you do, you get to put one of your... Where are my cubes? Here. You get to put one of your cubes here. I now have a point. Okay? Now, the other way to get points is to sail into these different areas of the sea. Now, each area of the sea has a location connected to it. North Cape here is a very established, very fancy, swanky place, and they always need grapes to make more wine, and they need money because you need money to live in a fancy place. Fort Haven is, they want pirates. They want you to go capture pirates and bring them and put them in the dungeon. They love you for that. And then over here, this is a island that has been destroyed by pirates and is now rebuilding, so it needs all these particular resources in order to help rebuild. I know that these are supposed to be grain, but I cannot stop seeing this as a pineapple. Anyways, that's not the point. In order to get your squares, your cubes on this board, you need to be able to meet the requirements of that city. Now, the requirements must be met in order up the board. And in order to meet them, you have to show up at that location with the requisite resource. How do you get that stuff? On your turn, you pick a sector. Let's pick this one. And you look at your boat and you see how far you get to sail. Beginning of the game, you only get to go 4 spots. So you will then draw up to 4 tiles in order to do 2 actions, just like in Starship. And every time you do an action, you tilt it sideways or at an angle so that everybody else knows that you did it. Okay? So this part is very similar, where you flip this over. Okay? This is a pirate ship I found. It's wrecked. I can take 2 gold and just, that's it for the whole action. It's very basic. Okay? And I know it's an action because it's got a letter A up here at the top. That's a nice adjustment they made. Over here, if you fought pirates, it didn't count as an action, but there was no way to know that unless you just knew that. Over here, an action, A means action. Let's say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to keep sailing. So I flip this one over, and I have found, okay, so this is an area where I can upgrade my ship. I can pay 2 coins to get a higher sail, which would be similar to building engines over here. Or I can pay 1 coin to either get another cannon or another dude. So they've simplified resources as far as upgrading your ship in this game, which I think is good. It's simpler and more accessible for people who haven't played before. It's very simple. If you want another guy, pay a coin. If you want another cannon, pay a coin. Cannons are good for fighting pirates if they show up, and the sailors are good for upgrading your boat. And obviously, you get to draw more cards whenever you upgrade your sail. You don't get any victory points or any sort of cubes for fully upgrading your ship, which is fine. The only thing you get a cube for is actually hiring all 4 sailors. Every player can have up to 4 sailors. But let's say I don't want to do that. Let's say we keep going. I haven't taken an action yet. Here I found an event card. It's, anything based off Catan is going to have an event card. It's an event card, which means that I will roll the event die, and either I will find free gold, it's just 1 coin, that's it, or I will face a pirate of strength 1, 2, or 3. If I fight the pirate, if I end up against a pirate, I can pay a coin and just go on my merry way, or I will fight him by trying to roll equal to or more than the skulls are. So like if I have 1 cannon on my boat, I get to roll this die 1 time, and I have to roll at least a 1 in order to beat him. If I didn't have that cannoneer guy that gives me the okay for this 2-pip, I would have missed. And then that's it, your turn's over. If a pirate beats you up, your turn ends right away. It doesn't matter how many actions you've taken. In this case, let's say I decided I didn't want to fight the pirate. I would pay a coin to the middle. I pantomimed the paying of the coin because I didn't give myself any money for this example. And then I would continue forward. So this last space is a space that lets me buy or sell fish. So you can buy or sell up to 2 fish for 1 gold each. So making money in this game is about buying low and selling high. You could buy them for 1 each, and somewhere in here there's going to be a sector tile that lets you sell them for 2 or 3 coins each. Now, in this game, you were able to claim cards and put them in front of you so that you're rolling resource dies and getting resources from those cards, much like you do in Catan and in Starfarers of Catan, and Catan the card game. They separated themselves enough and didn't use the name Catan, so they were allowed, they sort of freed themselves from using certain game mechanics that you almost expect have to be in a Catan game. So you don't have a tableau of resources that you roll on resources to get. You simply buy and sell resources at these various places. You don't take claim to them. But one thing they did add to this game that I think is really important and a significant improvement over Starship Catan is the ability to follow the actions of other players. In this game, whatever you do, you're doing it. The other player is dealing out the cards for you and maybe trading with you, but on your turn, nobody else is really doing anything. In this game, not only are you trying to pay attention to what's in the sector, you know, in the different areas when it's not your turn, or at least you should be. It's important to pay attention on other people's turn to see what tiles are in which pile. But you also have these contracts. I think they're called trade contracts. They're really cool looking. So you have a trade contract at the beginning of the game, and anytime an opponent does an action with that's underlined, you may spend your trade contract to do the same action as they did. So this is nice. It also adds a lot more interaction to the game because you have to decide whether or not what you're doing is worth doing if it's also going to be of value to the other player. So if it's going to actually end up hurting you because they get a better benefit from it, you might not want to do it. Or you choose not to do the action at all. So any action that has an underlined A lets you use one of these, and you get one of these at the end of your turn if you meet 2 requirements. You didn't take 2 actions, which means maybe you had a bum deal, or you went the whole way and you didn't see anything you liked, so you did nothing. If you only did 1 action, then you would be able, and at the end of the turn you don't already have 2 of these, which is the maximum, you get to take one of these and put them in your pile. If you've done 2 actions, you cannot take one of these. And if you already have 2, you cannot take one of these. But as long as you've only done 1 or less actions, and you have 1 or less of these already, you get to take one of these at the end of your turn, so that keeps the interaction going throughout the game. So in order to meet these requirements, you have to get the resources you need. So let's just say, for argument's sake, I was trying to meet this requirement. I just happened to come across a place that'll let me buy fish. So we'll say I spent some money and I bought myself a fish. Let's get rid of these guys. All right, so I have a fish. Let's just say for kicks, I'd also at some point managed to get myself a bag of this here salt. Now I want to go to Ostland and meet up with them where they need these resources to rebuild their city. So in order to get there, I would have to first of all go into the right pile. At the end of every turn, you take all these, you put them back in the pile you got them from, and then these get shuffled. How well do they get shuffled with one hand? Not particularly well. All right, those are so shuffled. So let's say for my turn, I decided I was going to go into this sector. Wait, go back 1 second. Another resource that you can get are pirates. Okay, this is cool. In this game, if you defeat a pirate, right? I had that event card. I rolled a 1-pip. I had a level 1 pirate. I killed him. Awesome. I take the pirate captain hostage. And pirate captains are these darker blue dudes, and they go in the brig. I've got a brig at the front of my ship. I can hold up to 2 pirate captains. And I would take those pirate captains to Fort Haven where they want them. They want me to bring them pirate captains. So, you know what? I don't even want to do these resources anymore. I want to bring the pirate captain to justice. I'm going to bring him to Fort Haven. So let's do that instead. So what we do is, let's say I'm going to pick this pile of tiles to go into. I've got a speed of 4, so I do 1, That gets me trees. I don't want to do that. 2, I can upgrade my ship. I'm more interested in getting to where I need to be. 3, I could buy grapes. 4, I found a pirate wreckage. So that's as fast as I can go. I did not find what I needed this turn. I could take, if I had chosen to take an action, I had to choose it before I pull out another tile. I can't go like, oh, yikes, I didn't get anything good. Now I'm going to go back and pick 2 of these actions. Once you draw another tile, you can no longer take advantage of the tile preceding it. So this was bad. Let's pretend that didn't happen, because I want to turn in the pirate. So never mind. Here, it's the beginning of my turn, and I'm going into this sector. I don't know if they're probably not called sectors, because we're not in space. Oh, look, how totally inconvenient. At the very bottom of this, I find Fort Haven. So if in your travels you manage to get to the tile you need, you can take an action, which is not underlined, so other people can't take it, to turn in whatever it is they're looking for. In this case, they want a pirate captain. I have a pirate captain. I turn it into the bank, and I get to put one of my cubes right here. Okay. Now you get a bonus if you have the most cubes in any row. And since I'm the only one there with any cubes, I get that bonus. So just by turning in that guy, I get a cube for him, a cube for the bonus. We said, let's pretend I have all 4 of my guys. So there's a cube there. I now have 3 cubes. If somebody else adds a cube to that row, right? Say they come after me and they turn in a coin and a pirate. So now they get a point, and I no longer have the majority, so I have to get rid of that. Okay? And then if that person manages to get another one before I'm able to, now they have the majority and they get the bonus point. Okay? So this is a great mechanic because it keeps you from just ignoring any one row. There's 2 things in place to make you not ignore a row. One is that if you let somebody go run away mad on one of those rows, they actually get a bonus point for being in the lead on that row. The other bit is that you get another cube on the board if you are able to have at least 1 cube in every row. So that gives you another bonus point. So the first person to get to 8 cubes in a 4-player game wins. In a less than 4-player game, it's 10 cubes. But that's the gist of it. Now let me say this. This takes the place of, this cleans up a lot of mechanics from Starship. This makes it so that you don't have to worry about another deck of cards that has random adventures. It makes it very clear what it is that you're working towards. In Starship, you don't know what you're working towards a lot of time, and that sort of extends the length of the game because you have to take a general strategy about things and just have lots of stuff and be ready for whatever the next adventure is going to be. There were a lot more planets that you had to deal with where their location was and trying to memorize that. There was much more of a memory aspect to that game. And in this game, it's very clear. We know where the ports are. And we have many, many less in each stack, which makes this game so much more accessible in so many ways. So I think it's obvious at this point that I think that Northwind is the better of these 2 games. I really like Starship Catan, and I found myself telling Jenny when she came in earlier, as soon as I set the game up, I wanted to play it. We haven't played it in literally years, partly because we have a lot more gaming friends now and we don't do as much 2-player gaming, but partly because she had sort of got worn out of it, and we needed a break. We wanted to play some new things. I like it though. I do want to play it again. I love the science theme. You put anything in space, I like it more. It's just automatic. I'm a sucker for space theme. But just the fact that this is a 4-player game automatically makes it better in so many ways. You can't get around that. The fact that they've gone back to making these giant pirate ships that are big and gorgeous, these are great, and I love them. These harken back to that time and remind me of how cool it was to have a mothership and add pieces onto it. I don't love the meeples. I think that the pieces are very strange shaped. They don't look much like what they're supposed to be, with maybe the exception of the bag of salt. But it is easy to teach this game. This game is not as easy to teach. It's easy to teach this game if someone has played Catan before because they're familiar with the idea of trading resources and building things. But even without that, it's hard to teach somebody about flying into the sector and what that means because I don't know if another game had done that before this one. While this has the same mechanic, it's simplified to the point where it is not intimidating to say to someone, which way would you like to sail? Would you like to sail towards this, or this? And then, depending on where they say they want to sail, they just pick up the pile of tiles and start going through that. That's easier. The theme, I think, in general is more accessible for a wider audience than the space theme, especially because Catan carries some luggage with it. Some people either love or hate Catan, and if they don't like Catan and you show them this, they may not play it at all. So that's a bit of a downside. I'm surprised by how long it took me to try Northwind. My buddy Bridge pointed it out to me during a sale at our local friendly local gaming store, the Wandering Dragon in Plainfield, Illinois. And they were having a great sale. He showed me this, apparently, and I didn't think enough of it to pay it attention. I didn't know it was a re-implementation. And as soon as he brought this over last night, I told him, leave it here. I have to do a then and now. I have to show people how this has evolved. And I would argue that this is an evolution of the game. It is a better version of the game than where it started. Because it's 4-player, because it's more accessible, because it is more tactile. It's more, I love the meaty pieces and the big pirate ships. I think that is fantastic. It has streamlined some of the functions from the original game and hasn't really lost anything. Honestly, I can't say that there's a lot that's lost. I do miss the competing for modules. I think that this game very much doesn't have a lot of player interaction other than trying to get things on that board before other people can. So your player interaction is there. But other than that, there's not a lot of ways to do anything bad to another player. It's a much friendlier game. They say it's for ages 10 and up. Out of curiosity, let's see. So this is 12 and up. Starship Catan's 12 and up. This is 10 and up. You're going to have a lot less hurt feelings playing Northwind because there's very little you can do to each other to interact. But I'm telling you, to see this game out on the table with 4 of these bad boys roaming the high seas of your kitchen table, it's really cool. It's really fun to add things to the ship. It's a neat idea, and it's still, like I said, very much in the same realm of this family of games where they have these sort of motherships that represent what you have and what you're able to do. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. This has been Then and Now of Starship Catan versus Northwind, a re-implementation of a game using similar mechanics from the same game designer. Also from Z-Man Games, not from Mayfair. I literally just noticed that that's a Z-Man, not a Mayfair. So take that into consideration too. If you have any questions, throw them down in the comments. If you like this, please thumb it up. Subscribe if you want to. I'm working on a master's degree, so I do not make many videos. This is the first video I've made in months. But I do want to try to make a couple more this weekend because I'm off for the holiday. So hopefully I'll see a little bit more of you, and I will see you guys on The Geek. Take it easy.